So today I want to talk about why enough is probably the hardest number to define. And this is something that's coming from a personal experience of myself. And, we've been on a journey to hit financial freedom for so long, and we finally did. And that enough number felt like it kept changing along the way in different areas, in different goals that we hit. And so I want to really share some personal stories of ourselves and kind of the journey that you're about to embark upon. I think a lot of times you hit a savings goal, you then raise that savings goal, right? You pay off debt, then you kind of feel behind again. So why does enough always seem like it's out of reach, right? Why do you always feel like that, like feeling of like the moving goalpost syndrome? It's something I really, really struggle with. Like I'm just going to be very open about this is, when I first set out for our financial journey when we were 22, 23 years old, I remember marking like I put together the entire plan, right? It's what we do with all of our students within Budget Dog Academy. We build an entire plan for them to hit all of their financial goals, and we know specifically when, how much it takes, all that kind of stuff. So I did this when I was 23, and I mapped out like we were going to be essentially financially free by 50 initially, which is funny to think about now, but 23 to 50 was like our target window to basically pay off the house, which at the time was going to be 35 years old. So 12, let's call it 12 years. I'm only 33, by the way. And all this stuff has happened that I've mapped out years in advance. But we were planning on doing our house in about 12 years. So at 35 years old. And then we were planning on become financially free at 50 years old. We had the exact dollar amount we were going to contribute, et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm 33 and we've hit all of those. We've surpassed all of those by a long shot. And I still at times feel like there's way more to be done. Now, I think some of this comes from a really good place. And I think some of it comes from a darker place. And I'm going to share both of those because I'm just going to share everything about our situation and what you're going to probably face as you grow with wealth as well. There's a hedonic treadmill, which is a psychological concept that suggesting individuals tend to return to baseline level of happiness despite experience positive or negative life events. And I think that is what happens to a lot of people. We adapt to new levels of income. We adapt to new lifestyle. We adapt to our successes. And when we first don't have those things, we look out in the future and we say, wow, it would be amazing. Or, I would have made it, or I feel enough when I hit X target. And so I'll share some times where I thought we were going to, like, that was our enough number at one point, or enough, the goal that we were trying to hit, and I would feel good at that point in time. And there's a short-term impact where you do feel good. So the first one was when we paid off all of our debt, $304,000. Well, I'm going to take it even back further step than that. When we paid off our non-mortgage debt, which was $76,000 in non-mortgage debt. So we would only have our mortgage at that point in time. All other baseline expenses were pretty set. And so we were like, man, if we pay off the $76,000 of debt, we are going to just crush life. And so we did that within 1 year. We got super serious. We paid off everything. We worked side hustles, did everything. Paid off $76,000 of debt in 1 year. This was back when we were 23. We stopped investing. Everything went to debt. We paid it off. We were like literally madmen. I guess mad woman, my wife and I. And we just crushed that. And I was like, man, this is amazing. We're finally debt free. I remember actually I was at Kimberly-Clark, one of my clients in Tennessee. I can't think of, maybe Knoxville, where they're headquartered. And I was down there for Deloitte. It was traveling. And I went outside into the main room to pay off my last student loan. And I remember calling them to pay it off, to officially do it. And I called my wife right after. I was like, we just paid off our student loans. We're finally debt free. That was $40,000 in the back end of our $76,000. And the student loans were gone and we were debt free. I walked back in my room with all my colleagues and I was like, guys, I'm debt free. I was so excited. And I thought like that would like kind of satisfy and kind of like be that baseline for like, okay, now all cash can go to investments. That's going to take some time. It is what it is. We know 50 years old is kind of that target, but if you're competitive in any sort of the way and you set a goal and you set a target and you set this roadmap, which is what all my students do, you tend to fast track that. You do every single, like it's literally so predictable that a student that comes into Budget Dog Academy that decides to win and has everything mapped out will do it way quicker than they anticipate. It's every single time. I've done this for thousands of people. And so the reason why I'm so confident about this, because I feel that in my soul, because we did it ourselves. And when we did that, we initially were saying like that would be our enough, and then we would just kind of like coast. But like if you're a high achiever in any sort of the way, you never coast in any area of your life. And so once you hit that goal, it becomes a new goal. It becomes a new savings rate. It becomes a new number. And I was actually talking to my mother-in-law on the way back from Iowa. We just got back from traveling up to get Logan her therapy or intensive therapy for two weeks. Great experience. My mother-in-law came up, and so she was driving back with us, and we were talking in the front seat. And I was like, man, I struggle. Like one of my biggest struggles, which is like a good and bad thing, is once I hit a goal, it's on to the next. It's like it's a scoreboard. Like when I was a kid and I played video games and I had like a 70% success rate of, like shooting basketball or whatever, I'd want 71% in the next game and like then 72. And like I even talked to her about this, like that's not sustainable because that's an infinity type of number. It's forever and ever and ever. And we're always on this treadmill if we do think like that. So I was talking to her about redefining my goals, like not necessarily putting like, okay, because we've hit the financial freedom status, right? We're at $4 million net worth at this point in time. We're good. Is like 5 million now my new goal, or like 10 million or 100 million? Like at what point do you just say, okay, like enough's enough? Maybe I need to redefine what success looks like. And it was a good eye-opening conversation, and she brought some really good points. She's very, very like just wise, like is the best way to explain my mother-in-law. Very smart, like wise, and just experience and stuff like that. And she really, really got and drove home the point of like redefining what success is. Like, what do you define as a win? And like a win for me has always been the next bigger number, and that is an endless emptiness type of thing. And that's where I've realized I've been actually unsatisfied at different times along this journey because I have a more number equals better success equals success for myself. And it's not a way to look at things. And so we talked about, she asked the question, which was a really good question. Why did you start Budget Dog? And I said to help people like ourselves, like put them in the same position we're in, because I know we can do it and I know it's doable. And for all the people with limiting beliefs, I believe I can overcome that for a lot of people and help them get to where they need to get to. And she was like, exactly. So why don't you define that as success? Maybe put a number in, if you're a numbers person, maybe put a number, like a number of students that you can help as like the goal versus like more money or whatever the case is, because you've already beat that goal. And what is the number you want to help of students and stuff like that? And so I'm thinking redefining all this stuff. And it really helped me think about that ultimate success measure. And there's a really good book called The Gap in the Gain. And I read this a while back, and it spoke to me when I actually read it, but I always go back and forth to it because it's a moving goalpost. It's like redefining success so that you're not always on this treadmill of more, more, more. Now, there's some healthy balance to achieving more, to doing more. But instead of just making more money, maybe it's I can make a bigger impact on using that. Now I have a lot of time, right? So maybe some of that time, instead of just consistently focusing on one increase on the scorecard or scoreboard of more money, maybe it's more time helped in the community. Maybe it's more time with my girls. Maybe it's more time with Logan in particular to get her the better health. And not that we don't do that, not that we don't focus on that, but maybe I redefine as the focus is that specifically. Instead of 3 hours a day with Logan, maybe I spend 4 hours a day in her development, walking, talking, eating with her, all that kind of stuff. And maybe that's the focus. And so I'll be very open. I haven't defined what those goals specifically are, but I'm talking through this because I know you're probably experiencing the same. You might have paid off debt. You might have hit millionaire status. You might have done all these things, but you still feel unsatisfied to a certain level of kind of emptiness. And it's because of this hedonic treadmill where you're always adjusting and adapting. And that's a positive when you think about it, because you can adapt to anything. So for anybody out there that doesn't think they can adapt to wealth because they've always been poor or have a poor mindset, or just think, oh, you got to make more money, or those people are just rich, you're wrong. Respectfully, you're wrong. And I call these people out because they have limiting beliefs. And when you actually believe that you can adapt, because that's what humans do, we've adapted for thousands and thousands of years, you can adapt to whatever you want. If you set the standards, I'm going to build wealth, I'm going to put myself in a circle of influence of wealth, you're going to get wealthy. I tweeted the other day, I want everybody in my circle to be gunning for 100 mil because I want high aspiration people around me. It has nothing to do with 100 million. It's just one of those things where not many people get to. And I want everybody around me to have that type of mindset. I want people to challenge me. I want to challenge people in my circle. And I want to constantly grow, because I think growing is the essence of life. Like that's where you gain the most clarity and you gain the most let's call it security, but also just overall happiness, I think is actually in growth. Because, one of the questions she also asked me in the front seat is like, would you sell your company? And I was like, absolutely not, because I've had so many friends do this, founders that build a company, they get to a place where they're no longer like needed in the day to day, but they can create impact where they want. And that's where I'm at. And so it's a very weird place to be when you first do that for the first time. It's like all of a sudden I built a company that's doing tremendous things, but I actually have way more time than I ever have. And in order to do that, to make that leap of faith, it was the reverse. I was involved in everything. I was spending countless hours, hundreds of hours a week. And all of a sudden it goes from that to slow shift downward in hours to almost where you've systemized yourself out of the business, but you still can be present. That's a really, really weird place to be. Like, for any founder out there understands exactly what I'm talking about. It's the first time I've ever experienced this. It's very fresh. It's been a couple months now, and I'm kind of getting used to it. But now I need to redefine that success, because I can't just go work harder and just generate more dollars in the door, because it's not like that anymore. And in order to get to the scale I'm talking about, it's not just working harder, it's working smarter, but also systematically, and building a bigger vision and leading the team and really putting myself in the student experience, just like this thing started. You can get easily sidetracked when you're building something big, of all the things that go around it, the marketing, the sales, the student success side, the technology side, all the back end automations. Like, I'm a very operational minded person. I like a smooth business, a smooth process, automations everywhere where I can. And sometimes I get lost in that and I forget, hey, I actually built this because I want to get the result, and not just all the like little minor stuff in the back. Like, let's think about the big vision. And recentering myself and recalibrating myself is an important piece of the puzzle. And it's also going to be a big puzzle. It's going to be a big thing for you as well. Because when you are on this financial journey, you're going to, like, when you surround yourself with my academy students, you join my academy. If you want to book a call with my team, go in the show notes below. When you build this and you're part of this and you start to do the things that we do, you start to adopt a mindset that we all operate with. You're joining a group of people that have high aspirations. You're no longer around people that shoot you down for paying off debt, shoot you down for saving money. And when you're a part of that environment, it can get really, really like a gamifying type of thing, where you're always trying to get that next level, and there's an endless amount of levels in life. And so you got to be careful about doing that and becoming almost a victim to that, to where it actually works in reverse, to where the whole goal, and what my mother-in-law asked me, she said, why did you start this? Obviously I said, because my students. She's like, but then also the freedom aspect of living the life you want to live, right? Being with the girls, doing all these things. I was like, yeah, I know. And it's weird because I have everything I once asked for. And if you asked myself at 23, like, what are you going to be doing at 33? And like, I knew my current plan at 23, which was like 50 years old, financial freedom. And I realized at 33, not only did I build a business, which I did not have at the point in time, but I built a community of people that want to do incredible things together. And I hit every financial goal I've ever wanted. And I've been able to donate money I've never realized. I donated $140,000 in 2024. That to me is a bigger goal than, having a $4 million net worth. Being able to give money because of the position we put ourselves in is one of the biggest blessings. Being able to spend time with my students, or spend time with my daughter because of what we built, that's systematically operating at a 95% NPS score, net promoter score. That's unheard of. Like, you don't have that. That means net promoter score, for anyone that's listening, is a score that you ask your students that are along the journey at different points, how much would you recommend this product/service? And 95% are 10 out of 10. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. To give you reference, Apple is like 70%. Harley Davidson's like 53% NPS score. We are operating at a place where I can't even put into words as to what we built. But the core of it is not how much money we make, or even how much money we give from the earnings, but the happiness of the student that's going through that process. Because that student is changing their life. That student is a person out there, or a family out there that didn't think they could. They didn't believe they could do this. And I've given them the hope and the roadmap in order to do what they want to do, and they can do it. And it's a beautiful game. And redefining the goals to stay in that present moment is very important. And you're going to experience this at different times. I remember when we hit millionaire status, and I remember one of my online friends reached out to me and she said, "Are you going to celebrate?" I go, "No." Like, I literally was like, "No." We had some pizza and wine that night, I think, to a celebration, my wife and I. And I was like, "We're on to the next goal." And it was silly of me to say that, because like, that was the goal for the longest time, becoming a millionaire. Now we are well past that, 4x past that, and compounding at a rapid rate. We're going to hit 100 million naturally. But if I hit 100 million and I'm not satisfied and I want a billion, what is the point of any of this? If I'm not able to lean into the purpose of what this thing started as, and be focused on just my student results, and everything else would take care of itself around me, I'm losing focus of the ultimate goal. So when you first do this, it's important to understand, number one, is why this is happening, the emotional baggage that's holding your enough number hostage, let's call it, right? So enough, what I have listed here is enough is tied to safety, worthiness, and control, not just numbers. So let me walk you through this, because this is going to be eye-opening for a lot of you guys. Money as a proxy for control from childhood instability. A lot of you guys had an unstable childhood with money. You guys might have not came from much. Your parents might have put like locks around the money, like you have to do this to get this type deal. So you might have some instability. You might have seen your parents lose something. There's instableness in you as a person that manifests itself as an adult, that stays in. It's still as that childhood, that child that you once were, that never leaves you unless you become aware of it. The other thing is worthiness, proving you're successful. So a lot of people come from, they're insecure. Like maybe they came from something, they didn't come from a lot, or they just have an insecure type of, they haven't worked on themselves personally, and they're insecure. And so they want to prove to their neighbor, to their let's call it their family, that they have enough. They have more than them. The other thing is fear, never going broke again. So I actually want to tell you a story of my behavioral psychologist that all my students will work with. So her name is Heather, and she worked with me initially, and I just worked with her one-on-one, and I said, "Hey, walk me through this. Like, why am I feeling behind, or why do I feel like I don't have enough, or what is it? Like, I always feel like I'm going to lose everything. Like, now I finally built things I never thought I was going to have, and now I feel like I'm going to lose it." She's like, you deal with like the successful person syndrome. Like, she laughed about it. She's like, it was very obvious for herself to see me, like, I'm building. I'm a high achiever, and boom, now I have everything. And now I'm building more because I have a fear of losing everything. And that's a very normal thing for high performers out there. You build something, now you have something to lose, and you think about the fear around losing that said thing. And so that was something that was very eye-opening for me. And a lot of my students will have an eye-opening experience with her, because what she does is she peels open the subconscious. 95% of our behaviors are subconscious. And so when you understand why you're doing what you're doing, because of the subconscious things that are happening in you, it's an aha moment. It's also something that you can start to focus on. And I know for me, it's fear. Like, I know that for a fact, never going broke again, because I was broke. I didn't have money. Like, we were operating at like a very low, let's call it a lower income. We had a lot of debt. Our net worth was negative $8,000. And so we were just getting on our feet, and I felt broke. Like, I had to get out of that situation, and I did, and I never want to go back to that situation. So there's a part of me, an element of me, that has fear, and I need to address that. I need to be aware of that. And there's no shame in any of these feelings. It's becoming aware of those feelings and addressing the root issue. Why do you feel the way you feel? Why is enough not enough? Because typically the three things: control, lack of control, let's call it, worthiness or lack of worthiness, and fear. And if you identify what your issue is, you can start to address the root cause and fix that problem and come to a better result and a more present life. It was a great conversation between my behavioral psychologist and myself, as well as my mother-in-law and myself in the front of the car, just because there was so much insight and wisdom to those conversations. So I want to define your personal enough because I know you're going to struggle with this. And I know this because you all are on the pathway to becoming financially free. So you're going to start to hit these or these different milestones, and there's going to be a part of you that's really excited. Then you'll move to the next thing. All my students are going to deal with this. And so I want to, what I always like to do is talk to my former self, or even talk to my current self, because I know that you guys are following this pathway that we laid out, the roadmap to financial freedom, whether it be my national bestseller right here or Budget Dog Academy, which is literally the roadmap to financial freedom, which we talk about, we define, we build, all that kind of stuff. You're going to feel these types of feelings. So the framework I want you guys to operate out of is right here. So first things first is build your baseline enough, like truly map this out number wise, because I want you to put this in writing so that when you hit these numbers, you always remember what you said at one point was your enough, your baseline. So what are your needs plus your security? Like that security blanket that you just need as a person. Maybe it's just an emergency fund. Maybe it's just to pay your basic bills. Define what baseline enough means to you. Define that number wise. Put it on a whiteboard, put it in an Excel sheet, put it on your phone, whatever the case is. Define that. Secondly is, what is your comfort enough number? This adds the peace, the flexibility, and kind of the extra margin for you. Now, I will say this. Baseline was checked a long, long time ago for myself. Comfort was checked a long time ago for us. The next level is aspirational enough. So adds freedom, adds impact, adds meaning. This is where I'm stuck at. And you might get stuck at here shortly as well. This is where you've checked every financial box you can check. You're building extreme wealth. You're building into tens of millions of dollars. And your only goal to feel like where I don't feel like I'm doing enough is, it's not the freedom. The freedom aspect's good. It's what is the impact of my daughter's financial concerns for her health related reason. We just got back from an Iowa trip. Like I said, that was $15,000 every time we go to Iowa. First time was 22 because we added a $7,000 LZ30 laser for her therapy treatment. And every time we go, there's 15,000, not to mention all the other out of pocket stuff. So what is that number? That's the impact I'm making, the impact on my daughter's health, my daughter's life long term. If she gets this treatment early on, we can potentially change we will change the course of her life, but in a substantial way, from, let's call it, living at home type of mentality and being able to be on her own. That's how big of an impact this is. So it's an incredible amount of work we're doing at that level. The other thing I want to do is be able to give, like I said, last year we gave $140,000 away. I want to give millions and millions and millions of dollars away. My goal is to give so much money to other people and to organizations to make an impact. I don't care for a lot of money, if I'm going to be totally honest. Like, I don't need a lot of stuff. And so our baseline and comfort is met. Now it's aspirational for us. And so I need to define what that impact is. Like right now we have a $1 million donation goal for Dravet syndrome in particular. It's on my back of my book. This book is donated 100% to Dravet syndrome. It's dedicated to my daughter specifically, but also Dravet syndrome as well. And we will get to that goal. But once I hit that goal, is my aspiration enough increase to 2 million or 3 million or 50 million? Like, what am I trying to accomplish? I need to define that. And so I want you to have some journal prompts as well. So one you've defined your baseline comfort and aspirational enough numbers. The next thing I want you to journal, why do I want more of, insert whatever that is, and why? What do I want more of and why? If you start to define this stuff and map it out, you'll be really, really questioning what your values are and what you're really after. But be honest with yourself, because it's going to show you what you value. So what do you want more of and why? Journal that. The second thing I want you to journal, what would I do differently if I already had enough? So if you've hit the aspirational enough number, you've done all these things, what would you do? Would you do anything differently? This is the question I've asked myself. And sitting in this chair right now talking to you is exactly that answer for me. I love giving back. I love providing insight. I love sharing my journey to help other people along this journey. So I wouldn't do more. I wouldn't do anything different. I could go to the beach and hang out today if I wanted to. I don't want to do that. I want to give back to you guys. That lights me up. Noah, I even explained to my mother-in-law I was like, no wire number. Like I could make $50,000 wire, $100,000 wire, where I've had a 200,000 wired to me, or an investment pop off and pay me a lot of money. Doesn't really excite me. Like I'll be honest, like it did in the beginning a little bit. There was like that dopamine rush, just your first big wire, 100,000. You're like, oh my god, that's huge. But at some point, it's like not that exciting. Like just gonna be totally honest, not to burst your guys' bubble, but eventually it's that dopamine. Like you kind of the hedonic treadmill. You get used to it, no matter what level you are. Billions of dollars, the same thing would happen to me. And I think it's funny when people say, "Well, there's no way you wouldn't go crazy when you make $1 billion." Well, you don't, because you adjust on the way up to becoming a billionaire. You become a billionaire in the mindset, which then adjusts your framework of like, you didn't just win the lottery. You expected this along the way. Same thing. That's kind of like where I went with my millionaire journey. I became a millionaire. I was a millionaire in my head before I became a millionaire on paper. So it was just normal when I hit it, if that makes sense. It wasn't like a rah-rah, like huge, exciting moment. And there's pros and cons to that, but that's just the reality. So ask yourself, what would you do differently if you had enough? I can tell you right now, I would have my wife stay at home. I would be recording this podcast. I'd be giving back to my students, and I'd be spending time with family. That's about it. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I wouldn't do anything. I do have enough. And that's an important thing for me to come to the realization of. The third thing I want you to journal is, when have I already felt like I had enough? And I can tell you this, I felt like I had enough when we were about, from a baseline, when we paid off debt. Our comfort enough was probably at that $1 million, $1.5 million mark. And when I had $2.5 million invested, which was our financial freedom goal, and now we're all the way up to $4 million net worth in total, I've been there. Like I've been there for quite some time, and it's important to realize that. So walk through your own enough list, what you value, what you protect, what you're building. Because guys, enough isn't a number, it's actually a decision. And I want to impress upon you today that is so important to understand for my high achievers. If you're just starting, like I even talked to my brother about this. He was getting his pilot license, and he was like, kind of the same idea, different goals. It wasn't a financial goal. It was to get his pilot license. He's like, just when I get my pilot license, I'll be happy. I heard him say that, and I called him out and I said, you won't though. Like it will be a big monumental marker in your life, but there will be so much more you want to accomplish after, because you're a high achiever naturally. So to understand that everything you do is, when you get that house, when you get that car, when you get that new job, when you get that spouse, it's not going to unlock this happiness. It's a decision that enough is right now. Enough is what you probably have currently. And if it was what you have currently was taken away from you, how would you handle that? That's an important thing to ask yourself. But this is a really, really important conversation, guys. I like to have this conversation just down to earth, like real with you guys about like where we're at, because, you might see just my post, and like sometimes my posts might not like give my full context of everything, because it's a short snippet of a tweet or a Facebook post or an Instagram thread or whatever the case is, or a video. And you might not know the real me or how I kind of see things, but this is where this podcast becomes extremely valuable, because I like to show you behind the scenes, like who I am, how I'm operating, and like show you the journey so that you can follow along and you can hit the financial freedom number. Like you can do this. Like if you're out there thinking you can't do that, you're just silly. You're just lying to yourself. But you have to define this, guys, yourself, because society is going to define it for you. Your family is going to decide it for you. The social medias are going to decide it for you. I want you to define your levels of success. And one last reminder before we go, I want you guys to take away this actual framework again. Define 3 things. Your baseline enough covers your needs and security. Your comfort enough adds peace, flexibility, and margin. And your aspirational enough, which adds freedom, impact, meaning to your life. In the journal prompts, what do I want more of and why? What would I do differently if I had enough? And lastly, when have I already felt like I've had enough in the past? Do those exercises for me today. And you're going to come to some really, really tough realizations in your own life that are going to challenge you, but help you in the long run. And if you want to take this to the next level, work with our team, go and really hit these goals at a fast rate, faster than you probably could yourself, respectfully, because we got the system. Go in the show notes below, book your call with my team, and be part of the Budget Dog Academy. It's a lifetime membership, and you are going to grow with so many like-minded individuals for years to come. And I hope to see you there because it's a very important piece that I want everybody to be part of. And what we're going to do within Budget Dog Academy and Budget Dog as the brand is help millions and millions of people. And I hope you're one of those people in the future. And with that being said, guys, I appreciate everybody, and I will see you next week.
You've been listening to Money on My Mind with your host, Brendan Schlagbaum. If you found value in today's discussion, share it with someone who could benefit from it too. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you never miss a money mastery tip. Until next time, stay passionate about your financial journey and keep taking bold steps towards your money goals.